You know, it's funny too. Ronald had to keep it secret for about a year from his family, from anybody. When they asked him a question, he couldn't let this could have fallen apart had you had a guy that decided to go out and tell a couple of friends who decided to go call up someone on social media who decided to go to tell TMZ something.
Yeah, it's amazing. And honestly, like, I think kind of just to say it again, like, I think we got very lucky that everyone who worked on the show, I think, was really loved the show and was really invested in what we were trying to make, including Ronald when he was let in on what we had made. And I think he really formed a really tight bond, I think, with the other cast, as well as Cody, Andrew, the writers, the producers, and being lucky enough to spend as much time as I've spent with Ronald now after the show. I think it's an experience that he really kind of, loved and feels connected to.
What's the name of your company?
It's Cinnamon and Sparrow. I'm actually wearing one of our pieces today. This is from our vintage line, 1940s. This is made out of recycled burlap sacks. And then the belt looks like it's actually snakeskin, but it's not. It's dehydrated mango fibers and cacti. Yeah.
Yes, her burlap sack dress accompanied with her dehydrated avocado and cacti belt was seriously to die for.
What was the ideology behind your company, Cinnamon and Sparrow?
Well, I wanted to save the world. I want to make it a better place for our parents and our grandparents and our great-great-grandparents and our children, which I don't have any because I'm married to my work. But if you have children, I wanted, to save them.
So her clothing she makes is edibles? Is this what I got from that?
That's
this
eco-conscious.
Belt is a papaya?
No, dehydrated mango and cacti.
So is it edible or no?
It's hydrated. It means they run water over it or
if
something.
you put water on it, then it would turn back into a mango. And
does it expire if you don't refrigerate it?
I don't know. That's what I was confused about.
Either way, she was snatched.
Welcome to Behind the Lens. Today, I have the Cinderella story of the Emmy season here. Jury Duty. If you haven't seen it, run to Amazon and check it out. Actually, it started on Amazon Freevee, which I had never heard of and wasn't quite sure what it was, but people found it. And now everybody's checking it out. It's nominated for 4 Emmys, including Best Comedy Series. And I have 2 of the nominees here. One of those is one of the producers here, executive producer, David Bernad. Hi, David. How are you?
Great to see you. Thank you for having us.
And I have the casting director, also an Emmy nominee, Susie Ferris. Hi.
Hi, Pete. Thanks for having us.
Welcome and congratulations. I can't imagine when you went into this project that you were thinking I'd be sitting here talking about all of our Emmy nominations.
I don't think when I called Susie about the project, I don't think that was her first thought, but no.
No, you're correct.
Pretty amazing. Take us back to how this started. This is just, to me, it's just mind-boggling when I saw this show is how did they pull it off? That's the question you must get over and over and over. It is a high wire act if ever I've seen one in television, especially a series. It depends on it all going perfectly. And so David, you also, I should mention, is another Emmy nominee this year for The White Lotus, the second season. Yeah. You're an Emmy winner for the first season of White Lotus. And so you're in drama series and comedy series, and that's a rare feat in the same year for any nominee here.
Yeah, thank you. I feel very lucky. I appreciate that. But I should start off by saying, I want to give so much credit and love to Cody Heller, Andrew Weinberg, Nick Haddon, Jake Szymanski, the entire writer's room, production. This was, an incredible feat, and everyone involved in the production deserves credit for being able to pull this off and pulling it off, as well as we did. But yeah, no, this started very organically. I had produced a movie called Bad Trip for Netflix with Eric Andre. I've always been a fan of Sacha Baron Cohen and Nathan Fielder and just the genre in general.
Yeah.
And I had an idea of, this had never been done in television. There's lots of films we can point to in terms of just taking, the prank genre and kind of applying it to a really tight narrative story that felt satisfying and had heart. And I called an old friend of mine, Todd Schulman, who had worked with Sacha for a long time. And we kind of, came up with the general concept of jury duty. And then we brought in Lee Eisenberg and Gene Supnitsky, who had worked in The Office. And the four of us kind of incubated the idea and found really, really great partners in Amazon and Freevee, and they were supportive from the very beginning. And they deserve also a lot of credit for kind of giving us the resources and the creative freedom to figure out the show.
Yeah, because you're putting a lot of money into this big crew, all kinds of cameras. I mean, how many cameras were on this thing?
I think 12, 13, 14, something like that. A
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
And all this stuff, it's not inexpensive, and Amazon right behind it all the way, because it could have fallen like a souffle at any moment if any little part of it didn't work.
Never hesitation, honestly. And Lauren Anderson, Christelle Miller, the team at Freevee, like they were incredible. And I think we sold the show to Lauren. Maybe it was like a 10-minute phone call, and she was all in, and never 1 second of hesitation. So I'm really really grateful to them.
And it's it's historical in a sense too. Freevee is an ad, whatever they call that term for this, the first show ever to be nominated that was on a service like that initially.
Yeah,
it's on Amazon now. You can see it on Amazon right now, but yeah.
And also, again, it's a testament to the publicity and marketing team at Freevee, and there was also on that side, they loved the show from the beginning, and it wasn't like one of the situations where they were kind of iffy and the show took off and they kind of jumped behind it. But I think from as soon as we turned in the cuts, their team was fully behind it, and we had weekly phone calls pushing it, and the publicity team just did an amazing job also with the awards push.
Yeah, I know. Great. I went to the FYC for your consideration event. You were both on the panel there, and the enthusiasm in the room was palpable. There were a lot of actors there, a lot of the actors branch, and I think this brings me to Susie here. I think, and I've said, I think it's the most phenomenal kind of opportunity for a casting director. So different than anything else out there, but a nightmare. How did you do it? How did you pull this cast together and make sure that the jig wasn't going to be up?
Yeah, thank you.
And of course, this is about a real guy, Ronald.
Right. So, yes, everybody else, it was a challenge bringing all sorts of unfamiliar faces to the screen. And of course, it's a giant experiment that they gave me a lot of creative freedom, which was incredible. And I had a blank canvas to work with. We saw a lot of people, a lot of self-tapes that we sort of sifted through. Then we passed along the ones that we liked the best. And once we started to put together the jury, it was just, the experiment. I feel like you hope that your actors are up to the challenge. It's, the biggest challenge I think that they've ever faced before.
Because it is a scripted show in a big sense of the word, but it's also not.
Well, it's scripted in the sense that once all the actors were cast, then they got scripts that had the beats laid out for them. But the unscripted nature is that they're coming up with the actual dialogue on their feet, and if Ronald goes left when he's, they think that he's supposed to go right, they have to be super quick on their feet and be able to pivot with Ronald.
And I should say, Susie and I, this is I think the third time we've worked together, and she loves comedy, she loves what she does, she loves actors, and I think the show doesn't work without the cast. Yeah. And I think she found incredible performers. They're all wonderful people and kind of deserve the success and deserve the attention they're getting now. But it doesn't work without Susie and that cast.
Oh, thank you.
They are all amazing. I mean, Susan Berger's I could name them all. I didn't even know any of them except for James Marsden, obviously, who is nominated for an Emmy the first time ever in his career, and playing a heightened version of an actor himself here is no easy trick either.
No, and to get somebody who's game to do that, to make fun of themselves, to put themselves out there in a way where he's supposed to be, the audience thinks that perhaps that's who James Marsden is. Yeah. He had to be such a team player for this.
Yeah. It's so funny. So in the casting, what did you have them do to do this? You mentioned self-taping, which is very controversial right now with the actors on strike. This is one of the big issues, self-taping. And I wasn't aware of self-taping and why that was so controversial now.
Well, self-taping obviously came about during COVID as a means to allow auditioning to still happen, to propel the whole industry. I think that so we had actors self-tape. They were given 2 prompts. They could choose character A or B, and then they had to just speak for a minute in that character.
Right.
I think that self-taping in this instance worked perfectly. This is the perfect kind of thing, because to have an actor just come in the room, I'm not improvising with them. That's not the nature of what we needed to see. We needed to see a character that they brought in whom they could live with for the entire run of the show.
Right.
So, obviously
And
there
go
is
with the flow and go with anything that could happen.
exactly. And the character who they brought in couldn't be so wildly off the mark from who they are, because it had to be credible. You could have, actors like David Brown, who played Todd, playing sort of a nerdy, eccentric guy, but you couldn't have everybody being super eccentric. You had to have, some regular people. You had to just balance it out.
The whole time, yeah. You had one actor who is a recognizable, he is sort of, but he changes himself. He's like a chameleon, but he was in Parks and Rec, which, as you later found out, is your mark, your target, your one not non-actor, Ronald, who's the center of all this, one of his favorite shows.
Right.
Nightmare,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
What if he recognizes
Well,
him?
you know what? Yes, that would have been a nightmare, and I think that the producers came up with a really smart way of handling it. They changed his appearance. They kind of told him not to be in the center of his eyeline or a frame.
We kind of pulled that storyline back a little bit and kind of separated them, so Ronald never really spent too much one-on-one time with them, and kind of try to negate any personal connection.
But the truth is, we're in Los Angeles, so Ronald thinks that he's on a real jury that happened in LA. Like you could see people at the supermarket, and you're like, do I know that person? Did I go to school with them? Are they actors? So.
Exactly, and it is there, but Ronald's not from LA.
No.
So how did you find him? Because that's the glue to all of this, and he is the hero of your story. I have to say, you really lucked out with this guy.
Yeah, no, and and that was the initial idea that we had sold to Freevee, which was, can someone become the hero of their own story? And it was the idea of really tracking this hero's journey. And we always knew the show would end with kind of a 12 Angry Men moment. And Ronald is, he's an amazing human being. He's from a small town in Oregon, and he was living in San Diego, and he responded to a Craigslist ad. He had just been laid off. And I think he was just looking for an adventure, and he's a say yes to life kind of guy. And he really just read a Craigslist ad and responded. And Alexis Sampietro, who's one of the producers, who was tasked with finding our hero, did such an amazing job of kind of sifting through 3,000 or 4,000 applicants, and did one-on-one interviews and really pushed Ronald, and felt strong that Ronald kind of embodied the character that we were looking for. And it's been really it's been amazing to see what's happened with Ronald after the show, and how much positive attention he's gotten. And it's really rare to see someone getting that kind of attention for being themselves, but also being a decent, kind, thoughtful human being. It's rarely do people become, famous for that, which is nice to see.
Exactly, and I think it gives the show a lot of gravitas that lifts it beyond a sitcom, beyond a prank show, beyond the hybrid of everything that it is, into something that says a lot about us.
Yes.
Now.
And when we sold the show and developed the show, it was 2019, 2020. We were heading into election. It was COVID, and it was kind of felt bleak, I think. And I think we were trying to make something that felt uplifting.
Still feels bleak.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, the hope was to make something that felt uplifting and had heart, but also kind of a positive message to kind of, to reinforce this idea that there are good people out there in the world, and there are heroes. And we wanted to make something also that made people laugh, and that was the intent with the show.
So logistically, how is this show done? How many hours did you have to spend? Because it has to be believable to Ronald that he's in a real jury, so it can't all be fun and games and scripted gags and things. You have to have the idea that this is a real
Yeah.
court trial.
And I think part of like the magic behind the genre is this idea of kind of if you create a reality and a normalcy. So most of the day that we're filming is let's say we're filming hypothetically 8 hours a day, 6 or 7 of those are completely boring, normal, and then an hour and a half you kind of get into the scripted beats and kind of the hijinks, and then you return the next day to normalcy to kind of just to kind of create a vibe that feels grounded. And again, it speaks to how amazing the crew was and the cast to be committed. You have to be really committed 7 days a week in 8 hours a day to the project. And it's really what we're seeing on screen is really a small slice of what the actual shooting was, because the other footage is really boring. It's normal court proceedings.
But I have to give props to the writers, and it is nominated for writing. That's my branch in the Academy, and I immediately, I don't care what the episode was, I said, this is really underappreciated, what they did here, in the whole scripting of it and the situations and all of that. But also, that judge, Alan Barinholtz, what a find he was. Was he an actor, or he had to be a real lawyer or a judge, right?
He is and was a practicing lawyer.
Yeah.
And he lived in Chicago. And when we first started this, someone, I think, floated his name to one of the writers, and the writers came to us and said, can you find Alan Barinholtz and ask him to put himself on tape? And we got lucky that he just so happened to be out here visiting his kids. And
a famous name among actors.
Ike and John. And
yeah.
And so apparently Ike helped him self-tape the first audition. And when we got the tape, I mean, it was magic. It was exactly we could just take that tape and just insert it into the footage. He was perfect.
And I should say, so I've worked with both Ike and John, and Ike is a close friend. And we had talked, he told me that his dad was auditioning, and he told me that his dad, when he was younger, really wanted to be an actor in Chicago. And as a teenager, kind of decided that wasn't really a path for him. He was, I think, wanted a more traditional path. So he became an attorney in Chicago. And he was an attorney in Chicago for 50 years. Wow. And then this opportunity came. And what's incredible is since we've made the show, he's now fully moved to Los Angeles. He's quit being a lawyer. He's in SAG. He booked another role on Physical.
His story, is one of my favorite stories that I've cast him twice now in other shows since this. He now has an agent, and he's getting to have a whole second career, living his dream. I mean, that's like a casting director's
at like 70 something.
Best wish.
He's a second actor, and I should say, and I said this before to someone, I'm the only producer in Hollywood that has worked with Ike Barinholtz, John Barinholtz, and Alan Barinholtz. And Alan Barinholtz is without a doubt the most talented Barinholtz.
He really is extraordinary in this. And you mentioned Physical. I wanted to mention, you have worked as a casting director, Physical most recently, but Grand Crew, The Connors, Roseanne, it must have been really fascinating. Superstore, Mr. Robot, a previous Emmy nomination there. You're a veteran in this business. Comparing this job to those for you.
This job, I mean, this job was a dream, and this job was unlike any other job that I had ever done. When Dave first called me about the job, it was sort of the typical phone call at first. I have a comedy for you. Let's talk about it. Okay, great. And normal protocol. I said, why don't you just send me the script, and then we can talk about it after. And he said, well, let's just set up a call. So that was my first instinct that this was going to be something a little different.
Yeah.
And so this was a dream, and so different from anything else, because I was given a blank canvas. Normally, I'm trying to find actors, obviously, to fit into the characters that have been already scripted and written, and this was the entire opposite. So this sort of let me stretch my casting muscle and do what I love to do, and I love casting quirky actors. I love, obviously, talented actors, but I love finding actors who I know to be talented, but the world does not know yet. And I love introducing those new faces to the world.
Yeah, and I produced Superstore, and Susie cast the pilot and did an amazing job finding, to her point, like really funny, incredibly talented actors who weren't famous yet, or recognizable, and you know, she's being humble. She's cast some of the best comedies.
Right.
And-
That was just a drop in the bucket
Yeah.
here that I read. But
Thank you
I
both.
mean, you know,
She, and when
Thank you.
when I called her about this, she never hesitated. She was in right away, and kind of, you know, that's and again, someone at her stature, that's, I think, kind of speaks to her passion for what she does, but also, you know, just love of comedy and love of television.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I also had no idea what it was. I had no idea. I knew that I was going about my job in the way that I normally would, and you know, my love for actors and comedy and all of that. I got to really, you know, indulge that part of it. But I couldn't envision what the show was going to look like.
Yeah.
this begs the question, can you do a season 2? I asked you this before at the FYC event because it really interests me how you could do it when so many people might be suspicious of anything. You really have to be 3 times as clever on a follow-up.
Yeah. I mean, although I don't know, but you know, anything is possible, and I think, you know, we're, you know, just in terms of the writer's strike and everything that's going on now, it's something that we haven't, you know, gotten into, but anything's possible, so you never know.
And that also is the question, your other nomination, which I have to ask you about, the
Please,
White Lotus, because I'm obsessed with that show.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm taking off for Hawaii and I stay at that hotel.
4 seasons,
You know, and I go there. I've gone there for a few years, but after the first White Lotus, I'm going, oh my God, this is what, this is where she did. I mean, it was so great, and that caught the zeitgeist too. You are really good about catching the zeitgeist lately.
I appreciate that. No, I mean, you know, it's something as a producer you don't anticipate or try to plan for. And you know, I've tried to think about what the two have in common, and I think they just both come from a very organic, authentic place. And there's really no consideration for, is this zeitgeisty? It's just what feels real and what feels authentic. That's the only way. That's I think. And Mike White, as a, you know, a writer, director, creator, is you know. He doesn't like when I say this, but he's a genius, I think, and he really kind of writes from a very personal place, and I think that's what people respond to. And they kind of and you know, the escapism and all of it. But as a producer, I feel very fortunate that I get to work with them, and just like feel fortunate I get to work with Susie and everyone involved with Jury Duty. You know, they've both been amazing experiences, and feel lucky.
Yeah, I mean, the first White Lotus had 20-something nominations, won 10 Emmys. This one has, I don't know, 20-something.
23, but I'm not.
But you're not counting.
Not counting.
23 nominations, and there has been an announcement that there'll be a season 3 too, and that's exciting. In Thailand or something?
In Thailand, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he is a genius, Mike.
Yes.
Yeah.
And an incredible human being. Yeah. And I think that honestly, like, I think that, you know, he's someone who doesn't seek out press or attention. He just really loves what he does, and I've been working with him for 17 years, and he's an incredible person, and again, very lucky to get to work with him. Yeah,
in the last 2 years of Emmys, you've been nominated in limited series, comedy series, drama series. He does it all.
He does, you know. I'm lucky to get to work with him. No, for real.
Both of you, congratulations, amazing, and can't wait to see what's next along these lines also, and best of luck at the Emmys, whenever they may be. And thanks for joining us on Behind the Lens.
Oh, thank you so
for having
much.
us, yeah.